The clock is at 0, and another Cougar football game is in the books.
Little misdirection. It's Parker Kingston in for a score, and BYU capitalizes one play after the interception. Middle screen, Kingston. Open sesame! Parker Kingston with his second touchdown of the game. Split backs now with Nawahine and Martin. Off the RPO, what a strike! Chase Roberts chugging across the 40, tight ropes the sideline, and finally pulled down by Darian Lewis at the 4-yard line. L.J. Martin in for 6. Carson Ryan, talented 6'4" tight end, goes slot right. Nickel blitz, pitch is not backwards. West Virginia able to cover it up. Instincts in the read by Fred Perry to get disruptive, and boy did West Virginia need that. First and goal, Mountaineers. The handoff to Hubbard. Feet turning and in for 6. Empty set for Bear Bachmeier. Fakes to Martin. Bachmeier walks it in untouched.
Now it's time to break down all the action. You're listening to the Cougar Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Cougar Post Game Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza Alex Napoles, joining me to break down another BYU win, 38-24. The Cougs get the win over West Virginia and extend their winning streak. More importantly, though, 2-0 in conference. Alex, initial thoughts? I know it got sloppy towards the end. We've got a lot to break down, but a win is a win, right?
Yes, absolutely. At the end of the day, a win is a win. I think you'll take 5-0 any day of the week. I think that there's, a fair amount of positives to take away from this one, but there are also, I think, a lot more negatives and a lot more sloppiness that I think needs to be addressed before next week. But again, at the end of the day, I think you'll take 5-0.
Man, 5-0, 2-0 in the Big 12. The Bear got it done today, dude. He's grown up a lot since week 1, and I think that is the most impressive thing, is that he continues to get better and better every week. And I know today he had his first interception and a fumble, 3 total giveaways by the offense. It was, again, a sloppy day. A lot of things that need to be addressed, but Alex, Bear Bachmeier had his best passing day by far of the season, career high for him. He threw for 351 yards, only 1 passing touchdown, but it's the way he got it done. I mean, we saw right away, opening play of the game, first play for the offense was a deep shot down the field, and he connected with Hagan, with Chase Roberts, and with Parker Kingston multiple times today. And I think that was my biggest takeaway, even with the turnovers and the giveaways. It's clear that Aaron Roderick came in with an emphasis today of taking those deep shots and getting Bear Bachmeier comfortable with putting the ball down the field. And I feel like he rose to the occasion today.
I 100% agree. Obviously, you want to clean up the fumble. Obviously, you want to clean up the interceptions. But I mean, if you just look at it at face value and you just look at the numbers itself, 351 is no joke for a true freshman. Yes, maybe you want a little bit more touchdown numbers, but you do get the running touchdown to go along with the 1 passing touchdown for Bear Bachmeier. Like I said, 351, no joke. Getting guys like Chase Roberts involved. Parker Kingston, we'll get into him, but by far his best performance of the season so far. Like what we saw from that receiving core for BYU. Like what we saw from the true freshman quarterback, Bear Bachmeier, man. We're continuing to see him take steps in his development and grow game by game. Phenomenal to pull out the win, to get the win at home. And of course, if you're a BYU fan, I think that you just want to see Bear Bachmeier continue to improve. I think the biggest thing that stood out to me, Christian, maybe you can agree, the fact that Bear Bachmeier throws an interception, right? Then they have the fumble. They're pretty, it happens all pretty closely. But one of the things that I said at the beginning of the season was I was curious to see how Bear Bachmeier was going to respond in situations of adversity. We saw him respond when he was down 14-0 last week against Colorado, right? He was in a hole. He was able to climb out. BYU came back, won that game. Phenomenal. Today, you have turnovers finally, I don't know if finally is the right word, but you finally have turnovers.
It is the right word, yeah.
Yeah. And then, I was curious to see how he was going to respond once he threw an interception, once he gave the ball away. And honestly, he responded phenomenally, right? I think after one of the turnovers, you have that 85-yard passing pass to Chase Roberts that Roberts runs it almost takes it all the way for the touchdown. And then following that too, you have the big play to Parker Kingston where he throws an absolute dot in between three defenders to Parker Kingston. And so obviously you don't want to see turnovers. You don't want Bear Bachmeier to turn the ball over. But I think more importantly too, the response to the turnovers was really great from Bear Bachmeier.
Yeah, I got some flack last week because I was talking about a play where Bear Bachmeier almost fumbled it. And I was like, yeah, I got to be careful so that doesn't turn into a fumble. And somebody was like, yeah, it's college football. You're going to have turnovers. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. But you want to do everything you can to prevent those. And we knew the turnovers would come. And you said right. Finally, right? Like we knew they would come. And that's what happens with the freshman quarterback. But I agree with you, Alex. I love the way that Bear responded. He had that interception and then very first play of the next drive was the 85-yard catch and run to Chase Roberts. Got a lot of comments chiming in already. I want to address some of them. Daniel Clark coming in from the top rope. Not a top 25 team. Offensive line was terrible. No rushing. Sloppy.
Very sloppy game. Daniel Clark. Very sloppy game.
I mean, I wouldn't say they're not a top 25 team. I think that's pretty clear. 165 yards on the ground on 42 carries is not ideal, but that's also, not really the game script, I guess. BYU threw it a lot today, 25 times for Bear Bachmeier, and Bear Bachmeier had a lot of carries too, 12 carries for him, 21 for LJ. Yes, you'd like to see more production on the ground, but to say that BYU isn't a top 25 team based off of this game alone, I don't really agree with that. They did what needed to be done. Honestly, they shot themselves in the foot a lot in the final corner. Tanner Wall came up with a huge interception, and then after that, it seemed like the defense really just kind of closed the books and walked away with this win, right? And I know Kelly is going to hurt, but all in all, I felt like the performance from BYU was really strong today. And if I were a BYU fan, I'd be really, really encouraged with this because BYU did show a lot of good things through the air. And again, the rushing performance wasn't spectacular, but I would take 2 100-yard receivers any day of the week.
Right. And I don't want to take any of that away from BYU because it is an impressive, what they did in the passing game today was impressive, right? Especially coming from a true freshman. But I do think that, in a different situation, in a different game, the sloppiness, the shooting yourself in the foot, that could really come back and bite you. Obviously, West Virginia still dealing with a lot of injuries, dealing with a redshirt freshman quarterback that came in for his first start of his college career, right? In Wilkins. In a different game, in a different situation, maybe things are different, but I think tonight you're absolutely right. They did what needed to be done to get the win. But you do want that to be cleaned up ASAP, right? You can't. We saw it last week, right? There was a toss where Bear Bachmeier tossed it to LJ Martin, and LJ Martin was upset with him, right? He put him in an awkward situation, put him in a bad position, and this was against Colorado. You kind of see a similar situation this week, but this time it turns into a fumble. You want those to be cleaned up. You want stuff like that to get fixed ASAP. Again, you did what you needed to do to win against West Virginia, but it was and I don't want to take anything away from the passing game because the passing game was fun to watch. Chase Roberts, Parker Kingston, phenomenal. But there's a lot of sloppiness that needs to be cleaned up.
I do apologize. It's raining really hard outside, so I hope my mic isn't picking that up. But no, I think the fumble was big. I would argue the fumble was bigger than the interception. I don't know. Both were really good plays by the defenders. I don't think either of them were like egregious mistakes by Bear. I know the interception obviously coming on a screen that's hard because you're not making a read. You're locked into the screen guy the whole time. And so, once the defensive lineman or the linebacker realizes that it's a screen, if he makes that read, that's an easy play for him to make. That can kind of be attributed to play calling because they like to run that middle screen a lot. So, the defender did his homework there. And then the fumble was on sort of a pitch option, right? And again, a great play by the defender, really faking Bear out. Bear didn't really know what to do there and looked like he was going to keep it. And then the defender jumped towards LJ at the last second when he knew the pitch was coming. So, and then the fumble towards the end by Demooney, that one was inexcusable. That was a really ugly turnover by a player who, BYU game script called for the depth to come in. And that's an easy way to lose playing time, is to turn the ball over when you get those opportunities towards the end of games. So you hate seeing that fumble from Jovesa Demooney there. But all in all, again, we knew the turnovers were going to come. And I thought, and I think you're in agreement, right? BYU responded well. Now, that doesn't mean you can turn the ball over 3 times every single week and win, especially if your defense is going to continue to lose players to injury, and that's tough. And I think that, aside from the offensive performance, is the biggest story of the game with Jack Kelly leaving the game. Not sure exactly what the injury was there. Obviously, there's a ton of speculation going around online. Shoulder. It looked like he came out of the tent in a sling. So I don't know if it's a dislocated shoulder or a broken collarbone or what, but either way, not a good sign that Jack Kelly did not return. I would assume that he's going to miss some time. I don't know how long. We'll see what Kalani Sitake has to say in the postgame, but that is a huge loss. I think Jack Kelly's by far their best defender. I know Isaiah Glasker plays really well as well, but man, you wish you could get a full season of those two together. So let's just hope that Jack Kelly isn't out too long.
100%. Good to hear on the broadcast that Glasker was mostly held out, after the first half, mostly due to precautionary reasons. You hope, obviously, with him too, it's nothing too crazy. In the broadcast, they did show towards the very, very end, they did show Jack Kelly in a hoodie, in street clothes, no sling on. So do with that information what you will, but I'm sure we'll get more information and more clarity on the situation of both of those guys as the press conference starts up. But you're absolutely right; those are two guys that, especially in the case of Jack Kelly, man, I feel like those are just guys that you cannot afford to lose on defense. And so the biggest negative that stands out to me, it could be the fumbles. It could be, it could be giving up late points, having your defense kind of break a little bit against this West Virginia team. But I think the biggest storyline, the biggest takeaway that you're gonna have in this one, of course, is going to be the health of your stars of Isaiah Glasker and Jack Kelly.
Man, I want to get to a lot of these comments. Getting a ton of comments flooding in. We really appreciate the interaction, the comments, the feedback. We're live on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, and on 97.5 FM, 1280 AM. So please chime in on social media. Let us know your thoughts, and we'll have some conversation about this because there's a lot of pessimism in this comment section. Alex, a lot of these guys are saying, they're going to get stomped by Utah. And I don't know if these are Utah burners that are joining the post game or what, but I want to focus on this one specifically. Where did he go? I lost it. There was somebody bringing up getting torn up by a rushing quarterback. I wouldn't worry so much about that. Looking at Khalil Wilkins, right, and his stat line, 7 of 15 for 81 yards through the air, 2 interceptions. And then on the ground, 23 carries for 89 yards and a touchdown. That's not a case of a rushing quarterback, that's not a case of a dual threat quarterback shredding BYU on the ground. That's a case of, an offense who really has nothing outside of their rushing attack with their quarterback, right? Their running back, Hubbard, who a lot of people were saying, watch out, this guy missed the Utah game, but he's going to do a lot of damage on the ground. Hubbard had 17 carries for 32 yards, Alex. Khalil Wilkins, again, 89 yards on 23 carries. That's less than 4 yards a carry. I would not worry about BYU's rushing defense or their ability to contain rushing quarterbacks. Again, this was a completely one-dimensional offense. There was nothing else that West Virginia could do besides just run it with this dude who I'm surprised he can still move. I mean, I'm thinking of Mac Jones last night during the Thursday night football game when he had to basically get carried off the field. I'm surprised we didn't see Wilkins leave in a wheelchair, dude. He was getting beat up.
He
And
took some big hits.
he took some hits, and that's all they could do tonight. So I wouldn't worry about that.
I wouldn't necessarily either because, like you mentioned, it wasn't, they didn't get torched up by a dual threat quarterback. This, like you mentioned, this is just the West Virginia side who didn't necessarily really have too many answers on offense with how much they're banged up, with how much, this is their third string quarterback. And at times we saw Scotty Fox come in, who is their fourth string quarterback. Yeah. And he actually had the big pass at the end of the game with that touchdown, the 54-yard touchdown pass or however much it was. But anyway, they're down to their third string. Rich Rod, I feel like at this point of the season, doesn't necessarily have too many answers on offense until he can get more guys healthy, until he can. Yeah,
that's all it is.
That's all it is. If it was a case of getting torched by a dual threat quarterback, I think you'd see a stat line for Wilkins that had closer to 200, right? Yeah. Not necessarily the 89 that we see on the box score.
Again, such a putrid performance through the air for West Virginia. And then the quarterback doesn't even come close to 100 yards. I mean, 89, I wouldn't say that's close to 100 yards. It really did not feel like Wilkins was dominating this game on the ground. I think BYU fans are at least, the ones that are worried about this are being very overreactive to this. I think all in all, it was a great game. Again, 3 turnovers. If it weren't for that and some dumb penalties at the end, this game isn't even close. And even still, BYU wins by 14 points, right? Yeah. So I think that BYU has showed well through their 2 conference games. Now, that doesn't mean they're perfect. That doesn't mean that they are ready to win the Big 12 right now. There's a lot to clean up. But considering all of the circumstances with your freshman quarterback doing this for the first time, I'm very impressed. I really am really impressed with Bear Bachmeier in this offense. I mean, let's get back to those receivers because career day for Chase Roberts. He had 132 receiving yards through the first quarter and a half. That's a new career high for him. He finishes with 161 on 4 catches. I mean, come on. And then Parker Kingston, 4 catches as well for 111 yards and a touchdown. Love the way they got Kingston involved tonight. I think it was clear that, again, Aaron Roderick wanted to come in and kind of set a narrative that, hey, our guy that's built like a fullback, he can throw the ball too. And that's the takeaway I came away with is Bear Bachmeier can spin it.
Yeah. Bear Bachmeier can spin it. And of course it helps when you have a guy like Chase Roberts. It helps when you have a guy like Parker Kingston. This is by far Parker Kingston's best performance of the season. Really, really came alive tonight in front of that Lavelle Edwards crowd. 4 catches for 111 yards, had the 2 touchdowns, right? Finishes the one with the 1 yard rushing touchdown to open things up in the first quarter. And then of course has the second touchdown as well through the air from Bear Bachmeier. 54-yard was it, Christian? 54-yarder. But anyway, Parker Kingston, by far best performance. This is the performance that we've been waiting for Parker Kingston all season long. I know he's had his early season struggles. I know that he came out, in the press conference earlier in the week and said, look, I didn't really go through fall practice. I was kind of banged up, or fall camp. I was kind of banged up. I was dealing with some injuries. And so I guess that makes, the slow start for Parker Kingston this season a little bit more understandable. But at the end of the day, you had to find opportunities. You had to find ways to get Parker Kingston involved and start building his confidence back up. I believe it was that, last week against Colorado, the first play, it was a deep pass to Parker Kingston that Parker Kingston, just falls out of bounds, can't bring it in. Today, though, Parker Kingston comes up with some big plays, some big catches, and this is exactly the performance that you need from Parker Kingston. And again, just build off that confidence.
And it's a matter of finding his role, right? He's a bit of a gadget guy. I don't think he's a receiver that, can beat corners with his route tree necessarily. And I'm not trying to say that to discredit his ability at all. He's more, again, a gadget guy. And Aaron Roderick, we know, loves to run some of those gadget plays. And, sometimes that means running the reverses and the sweeps. Sometimes that means just scheming him open over the middle of the field and putting a dot right on him, right? I really am happy for Parker Kingston because of the adversity that he saw through the first couple games. And I know how hard that can be. I shouldn't say I know how hard that can be. Like, I can't imagine what that's like, right? Losing the punt returner job and then feeling like the world is against you with some of the things that BYU fans were saying about him. And it's like, we were talking during the game, there were a lot of fans calling for him to be benched and they didn't want to see him anymore. It's like, this is a really special player. You just got to give him a chance. And today BYU gave him a chance and he had a great game. Phenomenal performance right from the get-go too. Fingerprints all over this game. So happy for Parker Kingston. And then Chase Roberts continuing to dominate. Again, we talk about him all the time. One of the best receivers in the Big 12. So when you've got, those guys firing on all cylinders and then Bear Bachmeier really dialed in for most of the game tonight.
Yeah.
I would expect him to continue to throw for 250 yards plus every single game. I mean, that's the type of talent that BYU has between the receivers and their tight end, right? And, when you see it once, you expect to see it multiple times.
100%. Again, a huge confidence builder for Parker Kingston. This is exactly the type of performance that you want from him, you need from him. Chase Roberts getting involved too with a couple of big catches, and a lot of credit, man, to Bear Bachmeier. I still cannot get over the absolute laser that he threw at Chase Roberts, that Chase Roberts was able to take for 86 yards. And then of course, just the pinpoint pass, man, between three defenders to Parker Kingston right in his breadbasket. Those two plays is probably what sticks out to me the most from this game as far as the offense goes, as far as pushing the ball downfield, and as far as getting big chunk plays. Those are the two plays that stick out the most to me. Those are those are the exact signs of a freshman quarterback growing, of a freshman quarterback improving. And that's, I think, what you want to see from Bear Bachmeier week in, week out.
What do you think of the penalties? Let's get into that before we take a break, right? Yeah. Because I think, again, that's probably the biggest story of the fourth quarter. You had the drive. West Virginia was closing in, and the biggest one, right? The late hit with Keanu Tanavasa, and then that extends there because that was a fourth down, right? Or was it the third? I can't remember if it was third or fourth down, but either way, it was a late hit on Tanavasa that should not have happened. You stalled the drive out right there, extended it, and then you have an offsides on the defensive lineman, again, extending the drive. And you're up multiple scores against this West Virginia team, but if you make those mistakes in a couple weeks, like those are the mistakes that need to be cleaned up. I'm not necessarily worried about some of the turnovers that happened tonight. I don't think those are going to be made consistently, but what we are seeing consistently happen is the mistakes in the red zone defense and with the penalties and some of these inopportune mental errors that need to be cleaned up for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, if Kalani Sitake hits penalties in the press conference tonight, as he did last week, as he did.
He will, yeah,
as he did the week before, because again, penalties tonight were killer for BYU. Ultimately, you end with 10 penalties for 67 yards, which, I mean, yardage wise, not the worst, but 10 penalties is excessive. And then plus a couple of those penalties, like the Tanuvasa one, extended drives for West Virginia, right? You had your defense. It was a fourth down, now that I remember, that Tanuvasa one. It was a fourth down play.
Wilkins slipped and Tanuvasa just body slammed him.
Or maybe it was third down. I can't. But either way, you have a chance to end the drive, right? You have a chance to get off the field. A good response from the defense to come back and stop them on the goal line, right? And deny the score in that situation. But, you have a chance to get off the field. You have a chance to get your offense back on the field, and you have a chance to kind of really put this game away with about, 3 minutes left, or however long was left in this game at that point. You got to find, you cannot allow an offense, even an offense that struggles as much as West Virginia did tonight. You can't give them opportunities to stay on the field, right? Get off the field, get your offense back on. And then go for some long sustained drives. BYU had a couple of those in the second half that I really liked that they put together. One ended up in that LJ Martin touchdown run. Get the defense off the field, especially when you're in a situation on the goal line like that, where you have a chance to stop them, from scoring. In other games, like you mentioned, you might not necessarily have the luxury of being able to stop them again in games down the road in conference play. And so, That's kind of my take on that. Penalties need to be cleaned up. I'm sure Kalani Sitake feels this exact same way. I think there was a pass interference too on that drive, Christian, that extended the drive even longer, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, just stupid penalties. And it's like, I don't know if BYU was just getting loose because they were assuming that they were going to win. But I know Kalani Sitake was not happy.
That probably could be. That probably could play a factor into it.
Yeah.
At that point, right, West Virginia isn't moving the ball. They're struggling to move the ball all game long. At that point, you pull a lot of your starters, right? It feels like at that point there was a lot of rotational guys and a couple second stringers in there to kind of maybe hopefully put the game on ice. But, that's not an excuse. You shouldn't be able to allow those penalties that extend drives.
No. One thing BYU did really well tonight, and you brought it up a little bit, they had two really, really dominant drives in the second half there. Obviously, their first drive of the third quarter, 15 plays, 55 yards, 8 minutes of possession. And then first drive of the fourth quarter, 12 plays, 75 yards, almost 7 minutes of possession. So that's, 15 minutes of total possession time between just two drives by BYU in the second half. And that's how you put a team away. And again, if it weren't for the dumb mistakes in the fourth quarter, giving up a late touchdown, and the dumb mental errors and the penalties and the fumble, the fourth quarter looks a lot different, and West Virginia's not even within 3 scores, right? But
yeah,
I like the way that the offense, again, maybe I guess I can say, like, when they were trying, right? When they were really dialed in, I liked the way that Aaron Roderick was able to call that offense in a way that controlled the clock, dominated the game, and the 4-minute offense or whatever, where you just wear down the clock and leave no time for West Virginia. And it worked, and that shows that BYU can put away teams when they're up. Again, it feels counterintuitive because of what we saw at the end of this game, but don't sweat it too much. Like, you still win by 2 scores.
And I think, again, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. You'll take 5-0 any day of the week.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a quick break. Pushing 12:30, late night. Again, I did see one comment, Alex, saying that they're like, I hope the BYU Utah game isn't at night. I'm sick of all these night games. Yeah, me too. But you know what? Thanks for joining us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're driving home from Lavelle Edwards Stadium right now, on your way home, you're tuning in, you're watching us on the stream. We're live on X, we're live on Twitter, on Facebook, on KSLSports.com, on YouTube, and we're also on 97.5. And so if you're you got us pulled up on the radio, you got us pulled up on your device, wherever you watch, your videos. Thank you for tuning in and staying up with us.
Yeah, continue to stay with us. We're going to take a quick about 3-minute break because we are on the radio. Coming up next on the other side, we're going to continue to break down BYU's win, 38-24. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what you want to hear from us. We're seeing a lot of people give opinion on BYU apparently playing sloppy, and they're barely going to be bowl eligible, is what some people are saying. So we'll continue to talk Cougs next. Stay with us. It is the Cougar Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
listening to the Cougar Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Cougar Postgame Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza. My guy Alex Napoles with me as always, breaking down every single BYU game of the season. 5-0 for the Cougs, Alex. 2-0 in Big 12 play. You had some thoughts that you wanted to share. We were chatting during the break here. What do you got for us?
I found it interesting, right? We've talked about how great the passing attack was from BYU tonight, and the getting the big chunk plays, and I think that there was a lot of chunk plays that and turned out to be very positive for BYU. But then there was times where BYU had that great chunk play and then wasn't able to keep the drive moving. Right, they stalled out. One of the drives that sticks out in my mind is that drive to start the third quarter where they ended up going for the fake field goal. Because the drive stalls out, Sam Vanderhaar then runs it for 14 yards, gets the first down, and then they stall out again.
And settle for a field goal.
And settle for a field goal. So as great as the chunk plays were for BYU tonight, and obviously, you'll take chunk plays any day of the week. You'll take those big plays that fire the crowd up any day of the week. But ultimately, too, there was times where, we saw it a little bit against Colorado. We saw it a little bit against ECU in that first half against ECU. And then we saw it a little bit tonight, too, where BYU would have an inability to continue to move the ball downfield. Those plays are supposed to jack you up, man. And I feel like sometimes that was missing for BYU, being jacked up after the big plays.
Yeah. One thing we got to talk about the fake field goal.
We did.
What a great play. Vanderhaar looked like it was a fake, it went to him and then he fake snapped it through his legs to Farron and then just took off.
Right.
But you're right. I totally get what you're saying, right? You would think that there would be some momentum and hype from that play that would lead to a touchdown. And again, BYU having to settle for a field goal in the red zone. And you hate that because that's happened to BYU so many times this season. As far as like consistent issues that have popped up week to week with this BYU team, that's it. It's settling for 3 in the red zone multiple times this season. And that's not something that they have been able to figure out yet. Again, it shows its head today against really an inferior West Virginia team. So I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if part of that is play calling struggles. I don't know if part of that is Bear Bachmeier does struggle when the field shrinks, because that is a thing. Once you get inside the 20, the field is a lot smaller. So your reads are different. You don't have as much time. But whatever it is, it needs to be cleaned up because it keeps coming up. So
yeah,
I think that's a good point to bring up. Again, with your chunk plays that BYU was able to get tonight, you're able to get some scores there and put points up other ways. And the chunk plays are something that we haven't seen a ton of this season, so it's good to have them tonight. But let's figure out these red zone issues, because that is something that can keep a good team from becoming great.
Yeah. Statistically speaking, I mean, they're not terrible in the red zone. I was looking at this at some of the statistics from before the game, and they were coming into this one with 18 scores on 19 tries, but seven of those ended up having to settle for 3, right?
Which is not a good number.
Which is not a great number. No, you obviously want to score. You'll take any type of score in the red zone. You don't want to be held pointless in the red zone at any time. But ultimately, too, when you're that close, and it feels like you just have to find ways to punch it in. And I understand maybe you're absolutely right, Christian. Maybe it is a thing with Bear Bachmeier with still learning how to navigate and how to manage the short field, how to manage red zone situations. It's the old age adage, right? Everything shrinks in the red zone. Everything's a lot faster in the red zone. Decision making has to be pristine in the red zone. And so maybe that comes a little bit with time as the true freshman continues to evolve and continues to take step forwards in his development. But red zone, definitely, you want to put 7 up on the board. You don't want to continue to settle for 3.
Some weird conversion numbers for BYU tonight. They were 4 of 12 on third down, 4 of 4 on fourth down. So just 30% on third down, 100% on fourth down. Without seeing some exact numbers, that tells me obviously they're seeing a lot of third and longs and a lot of fourth and shorts and able to convert those. So The third down efficiency, again, that can play into what you were bringing up earlier, is not having the consistency with some of the, getting yards when you need them, getting the little 3, 4, 5 yard pops at a time when you need them. So, but all in all, I mean, if you're 100% on fourth down and with Bear Bachmeier and his rushing ability, that leads you to pick up some of those conversions. But I want to talk about Bear Bachmeier and his running. So the stat sheet says he finished with 12 carries for 43 yards. I felt like he ran the ball way more, and I know he didn't. Like, I'm not trying to say the stat sheet is wrong, but it felt like he ran a lot tonight. And I know it wasn't as much as last week. They were saying last week he had 15 carries, right? And they wanted to have a lower number there. But do you think that Bear Bachmeier is, going to hold up over an entire season, averaging 10 to 15 carries a game? You like that from him? Or do you think that, they should lessen the rushing load on Bear?
If it wasn't as effective as it was, I would probably say lessen it. But honestly, I think that's a pretty decent number where you're at tonight. I don't mind the 12 carries, especially because there's a couple of plays where BYU is behind the chains, whether it was a penalty, whether it was a loss in the backfield or whatever the situation was. There was a couple of times where BYU was behind in the chains, behind whether it was second, third down, or whatever. But it was long situations to pick up the first down. Bear Bachmeier tucked it, ran it, and caught a lot of chunk yardage on those plays. When it's that effective, I don't want to say take it out completely, but I'll never be against Bear Bachmeier putting his head down and running through a couple of guys and getting those big first down plays.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I don't want to see him finish with, what did Wilkins have, 23 carries? Yeah, that's way too high. But I honestly
definitely nothing like that.
I kind of set the question up, as a trap there. Like, I really am okay with the 12 to 15 number. I think that's perfect, especially for, again, how many times are we going to say true freshman this year, Alex? But with the guy who's still learning things, still figuring things out. And at the end of the day, what he is bigger and stronger than almost everybody out there, right? Got a little bit of, dare I say, Josh Allen to his game, just in the sense that he is not afraid to get out there and run over a defender. And I know he's not a perfect player, right? I know he's not, the best running quarterback to ever come through BYU, but he does have a special ability, and we saw it tonight. Again, you mentioned when they're in a pinch, you need a first down conversion, go to Bear.
It shows that it's been a good option, right? Again, there was a couple plays tonight where they were behind the chains, and he did phenomenal to put his head down, run through a couple guys, and pick up some big yardage that eventually ended up leading to the first downs and leading to continue to move the chains. Again, those big runs, I think, are a big reason as to why I believe he ended up with more than 43 yards. But if the box score says 43, we'll leave it at 43.
Craig Barber chiming in again. I got to start looking these guys up to see if they're Ute fans in disguise. He says BYU is going to lose to Arizona next week and Utah the following. There's no way Bachmeier is going to get away with running against the Utes defense. And Utes is in all caps. What?
That one might be a spy.
You think he's scouting out BYU?
That one might be a spy.
I disagree. I think that Bear has shown consistently that he's able to do it, right? So that's part of his game, and we haven't seen anybody that's been able to take that away from him. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to take that away from him. And partially, you've got some studs in the receiving room that if you put all of your energy into slowing down Bear Bachmeier as a runner, he's going to put up 350 yards through the air. Parker Kingston's going to have 100 yards. Chase Roberts is going to have 100 yards. We barely saw Carson Ryan today, but we know the impact that he can have. Only 2 catches for 19 yards. But, when you've got the rushing ability to fall back on, it really makes it easy as an offense. Like if they sell out to stop the pass, your quarterback is going to run it for 5-6 yards a pop, right? He's not fast. He's not going to outrun everybody, but he's going to get those tough yards. And if you sell out to stop him, you're going to hit Chase Roberts on the RPO slant for an 85-yard catch and run, right?
Right. And of course, I think it keeps, most importantly, it keeps the defense on their toes. It keeps them guessing. It keeps them trying to figure out what's going to be the best way to stop this BYU offense. Because yes, if you start, forcing it to LJ Martin, you start running right, you open up the passing game. Chase Roberts can be available. Parker Kingston can be available. And then, once you start throwing it downfield and you start getting balls to Parker Kingston and you start getting the ball to Chase Roberts, that adds an extra element of, this quarterback can run. We also have to keep guessing on the quarterback run. And I feel like that's just BYU, Aaron Roderick, and the way that they're scheming up some of these plays and calling up some of these plays. I feel like it's a great way to keep defenses guessing. And I feel like a lot of times you saw that with West Virginia tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's exactly, it puts the defense in a tough spot. And, when on the flip side, BYU's got the athletes to spy and they can help out in the pass game. And hopefully, again, Jack Kelly's able to get rested up. Isaiah Glasgow is able to get rested up. But not many teams have the linebackers that BYU has. And that makes it easy to spy the quarterback and all that. Gonzalez Alex asking a question, serious question. How many rush yards did LJ Martin get in the second half? I don't have a official total. Just glancing, looks like he had about 20 to 25 yards. I'm assuming you're saying you wanted to see more of LJ Martin in the second half. I would agree there. One thing that was funny, right? They come out at halftime. They're up 28-10, and Jovesa DeMooney gets a few of the touches. He gets the first 3 carries by a running back in the second half, and then he fumbles it. That leads me to believe that they were comfortable with taking a large part of the load off of LJ Martin's shoulders and giving it to the depth players. But then, DeMooney fumbles, and that kind of makes it tough. But I would definitely agree. I would have liked to see more of LJ Martin, meaning a more efficient night, I guess. Not the most efficient of nights on the ground for Martin today, but I'm not really worried about that if that's what the question is getting at. 21 carries for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. I'll take it.
BYU, ends the night with 165 rushing yards. Do you know how much of that came in the second half, Christian?
How much?
46 in the third quarter, 59 in the fourth quarter.
Oof. There you go. So they did what they needed to do.
They did what they needed to do. And then in the second half, you have 105 of those. And then through the first half, you have 105 of those. So, I mean, ultimately, I would like to see LJ Martin more. But I understand why you want to get a guy like Jovesa DeMooney in, especially with the absence of Moa. Still uncertain about his status. Someone needs to step up. I thought we were going to see more Enoch Nawahine tonight. Only have the one carry for 4 yards. And then, of course, Jovesa DeMooney gets involved in the second half, but then has that fumble. And then it seems like BYU kind of moves away from the rushing game.
Forgot about the 32-yard run towards the end of the game on that icing drive. And reading the comments that Alex Gonzalez has continued to post, sounds like he had an ulterior motive. Not wanting Martin to be more efficient. Looks like he had some dogs in the fight, you could say.
We don't condone it.
We are, man, pretty
don't support it
by all sides, if you ask me. Look, dude. I don't want to get into that. That's look, let's watch some football to watch some football, right?
Yeah, I agree.
No, again, taking away the performance, I do agree. You would like to see more Nawahine. You'd like to see a better performance from Jovesa DeMooney when he gets the opportunities. But LJ Martin is your workhorse. He's going to be your workhorse for the entire season. And you know what? He had a pretty good impact on the passing game as well. Only 2 catches for 21 yards, but I'm thinking specifically of the big catch he had for the first down where he jumped up, tiptoed on the sideline and took a hit as well. Like, he's a special player, man. And again, it's not like you're getting a 150-yard performance from your stud running back tonight, but this is what LJ Martin is. He's a dog that's going to come in every single week and give you 80 to 120 yards, and maybe he'll rip a big one. But
yeah,
he is a true workhorse, and he's everything that BYU has needed him to be.
I've also kind of liked how they've utilized him in the passing game, man. You kind of mentioned there a little bit, but there was that play in the second half, the kind of little air out pass that went to him over on the sideline, and then he makes a big catch to set up the offense inside the 10-yard line. I've liked how they've utilized him a little bit through the passing game throughout the course of the season. Not necessarily as much tonight, but LJ Martin, at the end of the day, the closer you can get him to 100 yards, I feel like the better it is for everybody. I think at the end of the season, LJ will no doubt be an 1,000-yard rusher. And then, of course, he adds the 2 touchdowns tonight, which is also very huge.
Yeah, special player. Let's take another break. We're still awaiting some post-game audio. We're seeing some pictures online. Again, none of this is official, but it does sound like Jack Kelly was in a sling. I know he was, right, according to the broadcast team. Sounds like he was changing in the street clothes, no chance of going in towards the end of the game. And then post-game is in a sling. So that is the big situation to monitor, right? What is the health of their, future NFL linebacker,
star linebacker, man.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Because if you lose Jack Kelly, you lose a stud. You lose basically the heart and soul of the defense. And I don't want to overshadow what Isaiah Glasgow is, because he is also a very special player. He is also an NFL caliber linebacker. But I would say that Jack Kelly has been BYU's best defender this year. And you would hate to lose, sack leader, right? And you would hate to lose him 2 games into the conference season. And we don't know what the injury is, so don't want to speculate. We'll see if any info comes out in the post game, but I doubt we'll learn anything tonight.
I think, again, wish him nothing but the best, wish him nothing but health, because that, like you mentioned, heart and soul of that defense. You need Jack Kelly for Big 12 conference play. You need Jack Kelly on the defensive side of the ball. The closing speed that he has on spying the quarterback last week was phenomenal. Sack leader, again, can't emphasize that enough. The guy who's always in the backfield, the guy who's getting in there, bringing down the quarterback for big sacks. He is someone that I think this defense can afford to lose, and so we hope nothing but the best for Jack Kelly.
Siale Acera did step up in Jack Kelly's absence, and they clearly have a deep linebacker room, but he's special, and you can't replace his impact. So we will see what Kalani Sitake has to say. I would imagine he's probably wrapping up at the podium any minute, and then our wonderful teammates will send us the sound, and Sean back at the studio will get that ready for us to play. So stay tuned for that. Until then, let's take a quick break, Alex. We will be back in about 3 minutes. Stick with us. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles. It's the Cougar Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You're listening to the Cougar Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Cougar Postgame Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza Alex Napoles with me. Alex, let's close the book on this West Virginia game. BYU gets the win 38-24. Of course, moving to 5-0, 2-0 in Big 12 play. What's done is done. They got the win. West Virginia, not a ton to say about them, right? Completely beat up. Really going to be a long season for Rich Rod and the good old Mountaineers. So let's look at BYU's next game. I think, there are a lot of people saying it could be a sneaky hard game going down to Arizona. You got any quick thoughts there?
We're familiar with the Arizona Wildcats from their time in the Pac-12, right? And Utah consistently playing Arizona. And Tucson can be a tough place to play. I don't necessarily know 100% what to make of this Arizona team. I think that they're improved from where they were last year. I don't know if they're necessarily, world beaters yet or anything, or really contenders in the Big 12 yet, but they are improved from where they were last season. I think if BYU can clean up the self-inflicted errors, right, the turnovers, the penalties, because if you look at the statistical categories, BYU was ahead in just about everything. West Virginia had a total of 291 yards. BYU dominated that with 516. If you're moving the ball like that, the only reason why I feel like West Virginia was able to put up 24 points the way that they did tonight was because they got the ball in some really good field position at times, right? Because of the turnovers, because of BYU giving up the ball. I feel like a team like Arizona has a more potent offense, a more healthier offense too. I think that's going to be key. A healthier offense that can punish you a little bit more than this West Virginia side did. Ultimately, I think BYU can walk into Tucson, pull off the win, and improve to 6-0. However, they got to be careful. Again, Tucson is not an easy place to play. Arizona seems to be improved from where they were last season, and BYU needs to clean up the self-inflicted errors, the self-inflicted mistakes before they head down to Tucson for that game.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that Arizona got a little overrated initially to start the season because they were 3-0, and a lot of people saw that big old 0 in the loss column and were like, oh, look out. They're one of the top teams in the Big 12. And the Big 12 didn't do itself any favors because there is a lot of crud at the bottom of the conference, right? And I don't think Arizona is a bottom of the conference team, but their 3 wins to start the year. They beat Hawaii 40-6. They beat Weber State, no offense to our friends in Ogden, 48-3. And then they barely beat Kansas State 23-17. Now we do know that Kansas State is not great.
Yeah.
And then when Arizona played, their first real football team of the year, they lost to Iowa State 39-14, and not particularly inspiring performance, right? So again, I think it could be fair to say that BYU hasn't played any world beaters. So I guess that could be a fair conversation, right? But I just don't feel like, the reason I'm bringing this up, I guess I should say, is there were a lot of people in our comment section just barely right now saying that they're scared for next week, saying that they're going to get stomped by Arizona. And I just don't agree with that. I don't think that, number one, I don't know if BYU is built to get stomped by anybody because their defense is great. And I'm not saying they're going to go 12-0, but I don't think getting stomped is in the identity of this BYU team. But looking at Arizona, I don't think they're one of the top teams in the conference. And I think at worst, it's going to be a close game next week.
Yeah.
At worst.
No, but they're by far not one of the, I wouldn't even put them in the contending category of this conference yet. However, they're beating the teams that they're supposed to beat. I think that's a great way to put it. When you look at this Arizona team, they're beating the teams that you're supposed to get wins against, right? You're supposed to beat Weber State. You're supposed to beat Hawaii. You're supposed to beat, at the start of the season, you probably weren't supposed to beat Kansas State, but the way Kansas State is coming to the season, you probably were supposed to beat Kansas State at that point, knowing now what we know about Kansas State. Right. Like I said, they're improved, but they're not in that echelon where they're in. I feel like they're not in that contention yet to be contenders in the Big 12, and so BYU has a great opportunity to go out on the road and pass another test, right? We talked about it at the beginning of the season, right? Their schedule was going to get harder and harder as the weeks go by. There was going to be tougher and more quality opponents as the weeks go by. So far, I think the most quality opponent that BYU has played, maybe Christian, you might agree or disagree, was probably Colorado at this point.
Yeah, I mean that's the game that was closest, right?
And so now, now
continue to be up over BYU ever so far this year.
And now you're going to head into this Arizona team that I think is even a step above that. And so it'll be a great test on the road for BYU. And again, I hold the sentiment that, Utah fans from their time in the Pac-12, they understand, they recognize that Tucson is not an easy place to go down and pull off a result. And so I'm very, very excited and very curious to see how BYU is able to manage their road trip to Tucson.
Yeah, again, if BYU plays at their worst, right? If they turn the ball over 3 times like they did tonight, then it's going to be a close game. But if we see BYU play at their best and clean up a lot of these mistakes that have been plaguing them the past couple of weeks, they should be able to take care of business. And the big worry for me is look at who they're playing the week after, right? So you worry about BYU overlooking Arizona because the Utah game is so big and it is the week after. That's where you could get sort of a trap game scenario. But don't overlook Arizona. You're not playing Stanford again. You're not playing Portland State again. But it's a game that you got to take care of.
It is a game you got to take care of. And of course, you don't want to fall into any of the you don't want to fall into the idea of the trap game, right?
Yeah.
Go out there, handle your business, make sure you get the win against Arizona, and then of course get ready for the next week. But first things first, you got to go down to Tucson. You got to pull off that result.
Rich Rod was addressing the media in the post game. Don't have his whole thing, but I saw a clip floating around social media that I saw the caption and I was like, oh, we've got to play this. Now, I have not heard exactly what Rich Rod says, but he is advocating for a certain BYU Cougar to win a certain prestigious award, Alex. So let's hear what Rich Rod had to say.
What were your thoughts on Bear Bachmeier and his performance?
Oh yeah, man, we made it look like the Heisman winner in the first half. Hand him the Heisman. And he's a good player, tough, runs, everything we thought, and his accuracy on his deep balls was great. I mean, their guys made some nice plays, and we didn't. But yeah, I thought he was outstanding. Really was.
Okay, so the caption I saw might have been a little misleading. I think Rich Rod is more so saying that his defense played so poorly that Bear Bachmeier looked like a Heisman winner, right? Is that how you feel? That's what I took from it.
That's kind of what I take from it. Yeah, that's kind of what I take from it. But at the same time, right, when a coach like Rich Rod, I don't know if prestigious is the right word, but I mean a respected coach in the world of college football, has that kind of praise towards a true freshman quarterback, towards your true freshman quarterback. I think that's a good I guess that's a good way to end the night, right? You're able to your true freshman is able to get praise from a guy of that caliber. It's all good.
Yeah. And again, a career high in passing yards for Bear, and a career high in receiving yards for Chase Roberts, and then 111 receiving yards for Parker Kingston. And forgive me, I'm not sure if that's his career high. I'm assuming it's close. But all in all, again, you brought up earlier over 500 yards of total offense for BYU. Is that Thunder? Wow.
I think that was.
Anyway, sorry, excuse me. 500 yards of total offense for BYU. And again, we say it every week, Alex, but this offense continues to get better and better. We haven't seen a game yet where they kind of plateau and stall out. I still don't think we've seen the best of this BYU offense. Mentioned that LJ Martin could have been better. Carson Ryan, didn't see a ton of him. Bear Bachmeier probably could have hit some better gaps when he was running, should have had more than 40 whatever rushing yards, right? We have not seen BYU's offense play at its full potential yet, but they are continuing to take steps every single week. And I think they're going to continue to do that because of who is at quarterback and because of the progression that he is making under this coaching staff, right?
It's one of the storylines that we've been talking about all season long, right? It's when it's going to come with the growing pains of starting a true freshman quarterback. He has, I think, at the end of the day, come a long way from his first performance that we saw at the collegiate level against Portland State. We've seen him week in and week out, week by week, continue to grow and continue to put out better things on the field, continue to put out better things on tape, and lead this offense in a very positive way. And I've loved what we've seen from his progression. It's not the situation that he was asked to come in is not easy for anybody.
No.
A true freshman quarterback went through spring ball with Stanford, transfers in the spring portal, comes over to BYU, has to hurry up, build chemistry with this team, learn the playbook, learn the culture of BYU. Go through all those hoops before your debut game against Portland State, your first ever collegiate game against Portland State. He absolutely has taken his opportunity, and we see him grow every week. I've loved what we've seen from his growth every week that he's been out there, man.
Yeah, and even the broadcast was talking about it. Like, this was a BYU team with, the double-digit wins last year. The expectations were so high, and you talk about contending for the Big 12 conference, and then we all know the story, right, with Jake Retzlaff. And to think that, BYU sitting here 5-0, like, it is pretty amazing. And I had my doubts coming into the year. I know a lot of people did, and I'm not trying to be unfair to Bear Bachmeier, but that's the reality of the situation, because true freshmen struggle. That's just what happens. And for Bear, we have not seen those struggles until really today. And again, we did see the struggles, but they were able to correct them and get back on track and ultimately come out with a win. And now you're 5-0. I thought BYU had a real chance to lose at Eastern Carolina when we were doing our preseason, looking at the schedule, right? And then even looking at this West Virginia game, we thought that this was going to be a lot tougher game. But through 5 games, I have never really felt like BYU was going to lose. And I know they were down 14-0 at Colorado, but they turned that game around real quick. And it just shows that, this team is ready to achieve great things. And despite what happened during the offseason, they've got a great coaching staff. And they really feel like they can accomplish something special despite what they went through.
100%. The record backs it up. To be 2-0 in conference play, to be one of the remaining teams in the Big 12 at this moment, it obviously puts you in a great spot, because you're still in that echelon of, we are Big 12 contenders, right? Mm-hmm. So close last season, it left a bitter taste in that BYU's mouth, and so that they wanted to come back with their experienced quarterback and try to go for it again. Obviously, that didn't work out. You have to turn to this true freshman, and so far he's getting the job done. I think one of the things that stands out to me every week that I watch Bear Bachmeier, Christian, is at the beginning of the season and in the preseason, you were talking about BYU being a Lamborghini, and Bear Bachmeier just had to take the keys and drive, and that's what he's done so far. Right? He's not crashed the Lamborghini. He hasn't, messed up the Lamborghini at this point.
He ran a red light today.
He did run a red light. Well, and I think, at the end of the day, because you win, you'll be able to forgive him. But he's managing the game well. He's managing his opportunities well. He's managing situations well. And for a true freshman, I think that shows a lot, says a lot. And I think it should give BYU fans hope that there is still so much room to grow for this guy.
All right, Kalani Sitake has wrapped up at the podium. Let's get to that again because of BYU media guidelines. Can't play the whole thing, but we can play a portion of it, just a little teaser, and then we'll have the whole thing uploaded by tomorrow. You can go and find that at Brigham Young University Sound, wherever you get your podcast. But let's listen in to Kalani Sitake's post-game presser.
Obviously, I'm a little frustrated about some of the things that we didn't do well, but I think winning, I told the team winning's hard. And so you have to celebrate it, but I can't wait to get to work on finding ways to improve as a team. So I got to do a better job as head coach, making sure these guys play complete 60 minutes. But the guys didn't give up, and the grit, the determination is there. We should keep building on it. I mean, so all 3 phases. But I'm just really pleased with us being able to get the win. Even at the end, I just felt like at the end we just gave up that touch. That last drive was frustrating. We put some reserve people in there, and that's their time to shine, and it wasn't good. So they didn't answer the call. Hopefully they get another opportunity, but a lot of those guys are one play away from being on the field, and we had some guys go down on defense, so we'll see how it looks for Jack and for Glasser, but they didn't finish the game, and I was pleased with the guys that did come in and field for them, Ace Kafusi and Miles Hall and Max Alford and Ciale. They did a great job, especially with some of the stops that they were able to get. That 4th down, the goal line stand was awesome. We used 2 timeouts on it. I used 2 timeouts on it. It was important. I wanted to see our guys respond, and but then we still have the sour taste just of the last drive. So stuff to work on. I'm really excited about the win, though. We're 5-0, and I'm really excited to get back to work and get better so we can play next week. But I saw a lot of growth, a lot of people, specifically our quarterback. For him to respond after some of the mistakes that were made speaks to his growth and his progression, and just the way that he's able to just think about the next play and not let things get him down. And he's usually right where you need him to be, never too high, never too low. And I'm glad that he was able to respond from some of the mistakes that happened. So, what questions do you guys have for me?
Kalani, Bear threw for a career high 351 yards. That was the most passing yards you guys had in a victory since joining the Big 12. Chase Roberts had a career high 161 yards. Parker Kingston had a career high 111 yards. I mean, you did have turnovers on offense, but what was going right in the passing game? What do you feel like was working right to get those kind of numbers and that kind of production tonight?
Well, I think A-Rod and Fessy and the entire offensive staff felt good about what they can do, throwing the ball. And we found some spots, but I've just got to get over the fact that he turned the ball over on an interception, and that was it was just I think it was a middle screen play. And, I don't know if I like the call, but I know I don't like that he threw it right to him. So just got to keep working on it. But I do like his presence. I like his demeanor the entire game, even when things are going really well and when they're going really bad. I felt like he was in a really good spot. And then overall, we just got to take care of the football. I mean, it's hard to put the defense in that position, and I think they had two drives right there in the within the 10-yard line. I can't remember. One was on the 4-yard line. The other one was, defense played well, but they made a lot of mistakes too. So but you look at the numbers, and I thought they did a good job handling the run for the most part. It was a QB run that was kind of dangerous. We knew that was going to happen, but overall, it's just like spots defensively there was mistakes in different spots. It wasn't like one part wasn't doing good enough. There was a lot of different things that it was 1 out of the 11 that made a mistake, and they exposed it and made a play. But that's football. We just got to keep working on it. And then our kicker missed a field goal, so he's human last week and human this week. I need him to go back to being superhuman, and I'm glad that he was able to get that kick through. And all those things that we can work on and improve on and make sure that we're better. I didn't like the turnovers. We're one thing, but it's like the discipline of the team. Got to be better. Too many penalties, and more than anything, the penalties that were like thoughtless, false starts that would just make the drive harder and stop us from putting points on the board. And really difficult holding calls that when you're in the red zone. So that doesn't help us out either. So there's a lot of things that we can improve on. But with that being said, I thought West Virginia, you have to give them a lot of credit. Rich Rod's a really good coach, and he'll get these guys ready to play, and they won't ever quit. And so that was good for us to see that. And but I'm glad that we were able to get the win. I just want to win more comfortably when we can. You know what I mean? And I thought we had our opportunity to do that.
There you go. That is Kalani Sitake addressing the media in his post-game presser. A lot of the things that we were pointing out. Defense, I don't think overall struggled. I like the way he put it. It was more individual errors that West Virginia just capitalized on. I want to bring up Tanner Wall's interception just because there was a play where you see the corner. No offense to Evan Johnson, he got burned, right? And it happens. The receiver bobbled the ball, and Tanner Wall came over and turned that into an interception. But that was, an instance of a defender making a mistake, making a mistake, but it's not like BYU's pass defense was poor all night because they finished with less than 90 yards passing. So just little things like that, little individual mistakes that popped up here and there. All in all, I think the biggest thing to worry about again is the self-inflicted errors, the turnovers and the penalties, and clean that up and you're in a good spot.
100% agree. No more, we got to do something to bring down those penalties because it's been a conversation we've had here, Christian, week in, week or for the last
every
couple
week.
Weeks. Yeah, for the last couple weeks. The penalties have got to be cleaned up. You can't allow, and he said it, Kalani said it, right? They're pointless penalties, needless penalties, and you got to clean those up. You got to get those out of your game because again, there will be situations and there will be teams who will take advantage of that and will punish you for that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, man, again, you're 5-0. You'll take that any day of the week. And I'm just really, really glad there wasn't a lightning delay of any kind, because it is late, and here we are, and it could have been later. No lightning delays. Biggest positive of the night.
1:13 a.m. Thank you to everybody for joining us. Alex, real quick, offensive and defensive MVPs.
Offense, ooh. It's a tough toss-up for me.
Yeah.
Between Parker Kingston
I know where you're going.
and Chase Roberts. And then you can even give it a Bear, man.
I'd go Bear.
Because obviously Bear plays a huge part of that. He ends the night with 351 yards. But you know what? I'm going to go MVP Parker Kingston because again, this is by far his best performance of the season. This is exactly the game that Parker Kingston needed. 4 receptions for 111 yards and 1 touchdown through the air. Also had the rushing touchdown in that first quarter. Parker Kingston, offensive MVP.
That's fair. That's a really good pick. I like that. And yeah, you had a bunch of standout performers. I don't think you really could have gone wrong with anybody. Defensive, do you think anybody stands out in particular? I know just brought up Tanner Wall had the takeaway on that pick. Falatau Satuala led the team in with 8 tackles. Anybody in particular thinking for defensive MVP?
Oh man. You know what? I really like Satuala. We didn't really talk about him a lot through the post game, but he just the stuff that Falatau Satuala did tonight was absolutely incredible. Wish he would have had a little bit more TFLs. Wish he would have had maybe even a sack or something to throw in there. But 8 total tackles at the end of the night. Came in, seemed to be in the right places at the right time. Disrupted a lot of runs. It seemed like for the West Virginia quarterback, and so Falatau Satuala will probably be my MVP.
This safety room is incredible for BYU, and for as much shine as we're given to the linebacker room through 5 games now, the safety room is really deep, and I think any of those dudes that are out on the field can make plays like we saw tonight. So I think that's a fair pick. That'll do it, Alex. Friday night, little weird, but that means not going to have much action tomorrow night. In fact, no action from us, but as always, tune in college football Saturday, 10 to noon. You and I will still be putting a bow on this game as well as talking other college football throughout the day. So get some rest, right, Alex?
Exactly. Get some rest and then join us bright and early, 10 a.m. And we'll continue to talk about this game a little bit more, as well as everything that's going on around the world of college football. If you're still up with us tuning in, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for, being a part of the comments. The comments were absolutely incredible tonight in the YouTube section. And so thank you everybody for tuning in.
Yeah. Love the interaction. Love the feedback that we're getting. Love the fights in the comments. Love the people sweating their bets in the comments. We love it. And thanks to everybody that chimed in. Thanks to Alex Curie for sending the post-game sound. Thanks to Sean back in studio, keeping us on air, helping us out, sending things over as well. And then thank you, Alex, as well. And again, we'll catch everybody in the morning. This has been the Cougar Postgame Show with Christian Esparza and Alex Napoles on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.